Hi everyone, TARDIS Guy 123 here, and today I'm going to be doing another classic Doctor Who DVD review. And this time we are looking at the first Doctor story, The Time Meddler. And this is a classic for me, it's a favourite of mine, and for multiple reasons. It's a historical, but it's the first pseudo-historical that Doctor Who ever did. You know, back in the early years you had stories such as the Daleks and Keys of Marinus, which were the futuristic ones. And then you also had the historical stories such as the Aztecs, Marco Polo, the Reign of Terror, which was set in the past with no sci-fi elements beyond the TARDIS itself. But this story featured more than that. It featured a villain who was also a time traveller and whatnot, and thus you have the Time Meddler set in 1066. So it's also still keeping the history stuff and still keeping kind of like the educational part of it, but you also have something a bit more entertaining. Some would argue. I personally quite like the historicals. I think they work quite well for William Hartnell. Not sure how well they work for some of the later Doctors, but you know, anyway, obviously there you have the Time Meddler himself, the monk, played wonderfully by Peter Butterworth, and that's the first other Time Lord we meet, besides the Doctor and Susan, of course. And there, of course, you have the Doctor himself. There you have a space helmet for a a Viking helmet, and you also have a Viking ship back there, and of course the TARDIS, and all this kind of like lovely 11th century stuff. So now let's, obviously you've got the Hartnell years down there. Now let's turn this over, hoping it doesn't fall over, because this one, for some reason, doesn't like standing up. I'm afraid it's not going to stand up. But, oh, let's check the spine quickly actually. There's your spine, Doctor Who, the Time Meddler. Got the white to entertain logo down there. Then on the back you have some pictures from the story. And then you've got starring William Hartnell, written by Dennis Spooner. You've got all this kind of like synopsis stuff, and then you've got special features. Not too interesting special features on here. Personally, I would get to this story, but if you like the Script for Action series, which is about the Doctor Who comics, then you might find this one interesting. Let's have a look on the inside. Here, we've got the disc there, and we've also got the booklet. So let's take the booklet itself out, have a look at that. Of course, you've got some text there about the story. Then on the inside you have the people in the commentary and the special features, and in the back you of course have your chapter points. So that's that, and it is a 4-part story, in case you didn't know. So my thoughts on the story itself as I try to make this stand up properly. I think it is a wonderful story. As I said before, it is a classic for me, and you know, I meant it. I really do love this story in a lot of ways. I'm not entirely sure when I first watched this one. It wasn't when I was too young, but you know, nevertheless, it is very fun to kind of like see Stephen and Vicky interact for a lot of this. This very much splits them up from the Doctor. This is Stephen's first proper story. He was introduced at the end of The Chase, just in kind of like part 6. You don't really get too much background information about him, because this is more his introduction story, where you really get to learn about his character. No, that's not going to stand without me supporting it, I'm afraid. Is that? Yeah, and there is some wonderful piece of dialogue. As I mentioned earlier, the space helmet for a cowl bit, and that's very funny. And you know, Peter Butterworth is wonderful as the meddling monk. He truly is. And you know, you get that kind of like hint that he's not evil, he just kind of like likes to meddle in these things and whatnot, and likes to see how history might have changed everything. And you know, that's quite fun to see the Doctor fighting someone who's not evil, just amoral maybe. I'm not sure how you describe it, but he's just, you know, a very different type of character to the Doctor, who uses his time travel in a different way. And of course it's nice to get that hint of the Doctor's past and whatnot, which rarely came up in kind of like the 60s. Obviously the biggest reveal you get since An Unearthly Child is the War Games, where all that stuff is revealed and whatnot. But here, you know, you get hints at it and whatnot, and that's very nice to have. Because obviously you need those hints to keep you interested in that kind of like background thing. And it's often forgotten, you feel, when watching classic Who beyond An Unearthly Child. You feel like it's often forgotten, but here it is brought up again, so that's very nice. And then you have the whole Viking thing and whatnot, and, you know, visually, while that sword battle may not have been the most interesting, you know, you still have some very nice characters in this. And, you know, Olaf and I don't know the other character's name, but the two Vikings who are in this don't actually have much of a part to play in the main proceedings itself, but they are still fairly well characterised for just background characters who don't really have that much interaction with our main characters. And then you also have the villagers, you kind of have 3 of them, and there is literally a character just called the Woman, which is, you know, of its time, I guess, but, you know, she's quite a good character, and she works quite well alongside William Hartnell as the Doctor and whatnot, and it's all very good stuff, this story is. And as I mentioned earlier, Vicky and Stephen having a good part in this, playing their role in proceedings and whatnot, leading it all up to the finale where they meet up again, and finally put an end to the monks meddling. So that's my thoughts on this story. If I can make this stand up for me to rate it, is it gonna... No, I'm gonna have to keep holding it while I rate it. I would rate it an 8 out of 10. Because there are flaws, obviously. It's of its time. The action isn't the best, and, you know, there are some parts which it does get a little bit dull and repetitive. You kind of like need to get on with the story. But, you know, other than that, it's just fun to spend time in 1066 with this story. And, you know, it's very interesting. Got loads of mystery if you're watching it for the first time as to what's going on. So, yeah, overall, 8 out of 10. Definitely. Next up will be the Masters of Earth CD review. Next DVD review will be Horror of Fang Rock. So, thanks for watching The Time Meddler, everyone. And I'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.